In the last section, we defined our open database function call right here, and then inside there, we provided a callback to a named argument of onCreate. So this callback function is going to be invoked only if a user is opening up our application for the very first time. And so inside this function right here, you and I are going to do some very initial setup of our database. So for you and me, what we want to do in particular is attempt to create that table that's going to hold all the different items that we're going to load into our application. So when we first create this database, the very first time a user opens up our application, the database starts off as completely empty. Nothing inside of it, no ability to store any data whatsoever. So we have to execute some code that's going to actually create this initial table of items. Now when we first create this table of items, it's going to start off as completely empty. And so this initial setup is going to just create the idea of a place where we can store items that are fetched from the API. And then later on, we're going to come back and start to add those items in. So inside of onCreate, we're going to write some code that's going to do that initial setup. Now to do that initial setup or that initial table creation, we're going to use this reference to the new DB variable right here. Now you might be curious why we're not using this database variable out here. Well, just think about it. When we call open database, we have not yet assigned a value to the DB variable. No value assigned to this thing yet. And so the onCreate function is going to be called before we've assigned any value to the DB variable right here. And that's why we get this reference to something that we are calling new DB. This is very similar to the DB variable right here. It's just a variable that already holds a connection to the database, since DB does not yet have a value assigned to it. So inside of onCreate, to create that new table, we're going to write out new DB dot execute. This execute function right here allows us to send an arbitrary snippet of SQL to our database where it will be executed. So inside this execute function, we're going to pass in a string that contains this SQL code to create a new table inside the database. Now this table or this code that we're going to add inside of here is going to be very long, so we're going to make a multi-line string. If we try creating a multi-line string with a normal quote character like so, and then you try to open it, you'll see that we get this error message that says unterminated string literal. So in order to make a multi-line string in Dart, we put down 3 sets of quotes. So 1, 2, 3, and then we'll close that off on the other side. 1, 2, 3. And then inside these triple quote strings, we can add our multi-line string. So inside of here, to create our new table that's going to store all of our items, we can write out create table, and then the name of the table, which is going to be items. Then I'll put in a new line, a parenthesis, and then we're going to list all the different columns on this table that we want to have. So on this list right here, we're going to want to have the columns of, like, say, ID, title, text, and all those other properties as well, like deleted, type, by, and so on. So once again, we're going to have to do a little bit of typing here to list out all these properties. So let's take one more quick pause. We'll come back to the next section, and we'll start to list off all the different columns inside here.